The Tesla Model Y is filled with some great pros and cons, and most of the time, a lot of the cons come to the surface. However, today we're going to be talking about all of these cons that can be debunked and actually aren't a problem for us whatsoever. First of all, build quality is significantly better than anybody has previously stated before. Our Model Y came out of the Shanghai factory, which, to be fair, there have been positive reviews compared to those out of the Fremont factory and also the factory out in Europe. Currently, the Shanghai factory is producing the most units compared to any other factory, so it is very efficient at what it does. However, that doesn't take away or discourage anything from the actual build quality. I've owned a few luxury cars in my life, and every single one of them squeaked, rattled, or had some sort of annoying noise within the cabin when driving. For the first time in my life, I can genuinely say that the Tesla Model Y has no squeaks, no rattles, no absolutely annoying little buzzing sounds anywhere when you're driving. So from an everyday consumer point of view, this is by far one of the best things. However, when you actually look at the build quality overall of the car, it was phenomenal. When we picked up the Model Y, there was no panel gaps, no scratches, absolutely nothing. It was in near perfect condition. Like I mentioned in previous videos, there was a couple little hiccups here and there. So for example, the seats themselves were quite a little bit dusty inside, and there was a small mark or two on the rear seats from the seat belts. Overall, the steering wheel was perfect, all the alignment of the panels was perfect. There wasn't any discoloration outside of the norm from the panels and the paint. All was acceptable and within tolerances for my personal opinion. Generally speaking about the whole car, there was absolutely no concerns about build quality from the Shanghai factory. Now, let's move on to suspension. First of all, suspension was one of the items that was brought up in almost every single video when the Model Y was released in Australia. Everybody commented that it was incredibly firm, it was incredibly hard, and it wasn't a comfortable ride whatsoever. However, what we found is actually that is very much so untrue. Yes, it is a little bit harder than most cars in that medium SUV range. However, that is not saying or taking anything away from the actual suspension package. The suspension is very, very good. And what you get used to very quickly is when you're driving the Tesla Model Y, it feels like a sports car rather than your standard medium-sized SUV. So you get used to the harder suspension, you get used to the light ride height, you get used to the tight corners. It's actually very, very enjoyable. Now, personally, I do like sports cars. I have always had low cars in my entire life. So I'm not taking anything away from the fact that other cars have better suspension. Absolutely they do. But I don't think that suspension should be an issue. I knew when we were purchasing the Model Y, everybody was talking about suspension being bad, and it was a point that almost put us off buying the Model Y, or at least delaying it till we could test drive it a few months later down the track. Thankfully, we bit the bullet, pre-ordered the vehicle, and we've been happy ever since. There is nothing to be concerned about the suspension. Another fun fact that keeps coming up is the actual glass. So the glass of the Tesla Model Y is obviously expansive. It is significantly more than most other cars on the road. You have that full panoramic sunroof, you have all of your other windows as standard as well. So most of your cabin is typically glass in this vehicle. What people don't realize is they're extremely tinted. So the roof, for example, you can barely even see out of it on a very cloudy day because it is nearly pitch black. You can see out of it on a sunny day, it is beautiful, but it is not like your typical sunroof that's just clear glass. The rear window and the rear passenger windows are all extremely tinted as well. It is only the front two driver's windows and the windshield that aren't tinted, but they are UV protected. This is also the first vehicle I haven't had to go out and purchase additional UV protection on because there has been no issues whatsoever. Now I understand that people are also worried about the cabin getting extremely hot, and yes, if you turn your cabin overheat protection off, it absolutely will be stinking hot inside that cabin if you live in a hot climate. Now we live in Australia, so it's relatively hot here, but it does get cooler in the winter months, so you have a bit of a balance. Overall, the cabin overheat protection tends to kick in pretty quickly. I've got mine set to 38 degrees, and it's not too uncomfortable getting in the car after a hot day. I do believe if I parked it outside in the direct sun for a very prolonged period of time, it would be extremely hot, but so is every other car. So I don't think that the sunroof in itself causes that car to overheat too much. as long as you have your overheat protection on. Now, on a side note to this huge panoramic sunroof, it is actually covered on our insurance policy under window and glass protection. So if a rock dropped, a tree fell on it, whatever happened, it's protected under its own insurance policy separate to the main vehicle insurance policy. I do recommend you check this with your insurance company. Ours is only a very small fee if it ever does crack or break. Another huge elephant in the room is the white seats. Now, the white seats are beautiful. They make the car what it is. And so many people get deterred by white seats. Everybody we told that we were getting white seats, their immediate reaction was, "You're crazy." However, so far, so good. The white seats are incredibly easy to keep clean. They don't stain, and generally speaking, there is no issues with them. So why do people complain about the white seats? Well, honestly, I believe people are complaining about the white seats because they're not keeping their car clean. They're not looking after their vehicles. And if we let go of the car and just completely trash the seats, then absolutely, even any other fabric seat or any other leather seat would get completely trashed if you just left it alone for a prolonged period of time. However, when you look after it, you simply just have to use a baby wipe that's predominantly water on them once a week and you're good to go. If it does get a little bit stained for whatever reason, you can use pure Castile soap on the top of it, which is basically a very gentle, non-detergent soap that can clean most of the stains that are stuck. I have spoken to Tesla about getting rid of the stains on the seats themselves, and they said bring it in and they will clean the seats with a product that they have in their showroom. Last but not least, Tesla recently introduced a new feature that basically took away one of your greatest assets in the car. After 8 years of ownership, you are going to have to pay for basic connectivity, which is your navigation. Now, you use this almost all day, every day, and it automatically syncs with your calendar. So it really gets you into the habit of using this navigation, which also helps the computer understand how much battery you're gonna have left. Personally speaking, 8 years is a very long time and approximately the length of time I'm planning on keeping this vehicle for. However, when that 8 years does turn around, I'm expecting it to only be about $5 to $10 a month, in line with that premium connectivity, if not even cheaper. So this is slightly a con. However, the premium connectivity that they offer you free for the first 30 days to try get you hooked in isn't required whatsoever in my opinion. It isn't often that you're really gonna need to use Spotify or that you're gonna wanna watch Netflix on the actual Tesla or that you need any of those other features. It is an amazing option, absolutely, but you can always hotspot your phone to use some of these features. So overall, I don't think this feature is needed. I think it's just an excessive waste of money. Anyway, that's all for me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you check out the playlist to the side of me for more great Tesla content. If you loved the video, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. But like always, I'll see you next Monday.